Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, 𝐼𝐸𝐿, alongside my sharp-dressed looking co-host, Tyson Gentry. I love how you're dressed. So you're ready to bring the heat. That's what I know.
No, I got to sit in front of people at work, so sometimes I'm not able to change into looking like a complete weirdo before we start here. But I got the salmon polo on. I got the fresh beard cut. I'm ready, Brad.
Well, we got a lot to discuss today. NFL Week 2 recap, and for those who are just tuning in, we got our segment where we talk about stuff that we want to get off our chest from the week, whether it's something positive, negative. That's called Just Say It. Then we'll go into Armchair Quarterback. We talk about some of the biggest things that just happened in Week 2. Then we'll move over into Marquee Matchups where we preview some of the biggest games of the weekend. But Tyson, before we get into that, just some general thoughts on what you saw this weekend and what you thought of the NFL season so far.
This is the NFL, brother. That's it. I mean, we kind of trying to figure out what do we want to talk about this week, and some of the things that didn't necessarily end up on the cutting room floor. We'll get to them, but like Bryce Young all of a sudden doesn't have a job. People are freaking out about Caleb Williams. People are freaking out about all these rookie quarterbacks, and it's nice to have it back around because Dolphins fans had to sit there from Thursday night to Sunday morning with nothing but Tua news and getting crapped on, and then Sunday happened, and everybody forgot about the Dolphins from Thursday, and then Monday night comes, and now nobody cares that the Bears' offense looked like it did because the Eagles collapsed, and so just the cycle of it, it never sleeps. It's really hard to we can't come up here and talk to you guys about the Giants and Commanders because that was so long ago. Nobody gives a shit.
That's the way it goes. It's the NFL cycle. It never stops. But Tyson, let's get into Just Say It. I'll start off this week, and I just want to highlight, and I'm actually going to be positive because I think it's so telling. Coaching matters in this league. And I know we say that, but I'm sitting there watching on Week 2, and we go into the weekend, and everybody's talking about the Colts, and Malik Willis stinks, and there's no way the Packers can win this game. Well, they did. You know why? Because Matt LaFleur is a really good coach. He game planned, he attacked, he put something together for his backup QB, whoever he thought was horrible, but he made it work. And then I'm looking at it, and we rightly thought the 49ers were going to go into Minnesota and steamroll them, right? Sam Darnold, no way. We don't know if he's any good. The 49ers coming off their big win against the Jets, like they're just going to keep cruising. And once again, Kevin O'Connell shows how good of a head coach he is, designing offenses, working in tandem with Brian Flores. And I think that's the big difference here. And I listened to Michael Lombardi, the former executive for the New England Patriots, talk about how there's a difference between play callers and head coaches. Because if you're the head coach, you have to work in tandem with your defense, with your special teams. We got to figure out ways that we can operate as a complete team. And he talks about how Shane Steichen is a really good play caller for the Colts, but him and Gus Bradley are kind of butting heads. Same with Mike McDaniel down in Miami, where the defensive coordinator is kind of not on the same page in terms of, how can we optimize this thing? Well, Kevin O'Connell, since he's taken over, understands, since he's a former quarterback, what it takes to be successful in the NFL. And the Vikings, they hit a home run with this hire. We saw it once again on Sunday. And then Tyson, I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know. But holy smokes, Jim Harbaugh is just a good coach, man. They're 2-0. The Chargers are for the first time since 2012. Has it looked pretty? Absolutely not. They've run like just power formations. I mean, they had one running back and freaking 9 offensive linemen on the field a couple plays. I mean, it's just we're going to do what it takes to win. We have a different attitude, a different mindset, and it completely changes how this thing looks in Los Angeles going forward with Justin Herbert. So Just Say It, man, I got to say coaching matters, and we see each and every Sunday.
Well, one thing, too, that kind of goes along with your point, all three of those, Harbaugh has Jesse Minter, LaFleur has Jeff Hafley, and then who was the last one? The Brian Flores with the Vikings. I mean, we're getting Brock Purdy going up to him after the game being like, dude, your scheme is legit and all this stuff. So a couple matters at the top, certainly with the head coaches, but sometimes we lose sight a little bit of coordinators and position coaches. I mean, there's a reason the Patriots offensive line was so good for 100 years, and it wasn't the guys they had in the room. It was, Dante Scarnecchia was awesome. So, yes, coaching matters, and sometimes – it's just too much MLB and NBA where we're not totally sure necessarily how much, of their imprint is put on the game. And then you get to football and you're like, oh, he didn't call a timeout. This guy sucks. Where you forget to pinch run somebody in the 7th inning. Nobody's too mad at you in baseball. My rant, Brad, everybody forgot how this works. This is the NFL. This is the Ravens lost, the Cowboys lost, the Niners lost, Detroit lost, Philly lost, and that's okay. And that's going to continue to happen because every team in this league is really good. It's the way the league works. 2 weeks is too early to abandon all your priors that you had before the season. But it's also late enough now into the season where you can kind of start reevaluating some things and go, oh, the Saints just scored 40 points again, and they only had to throw or complete 11 passes. Like maybe we were wrong a little bit about that defense or that team as a whole. But then I'm not going to abandon like what I thought about the Baltimore Ravens because they're 0-2. So it's a balancing act a little bit. But it's so funny to me right now with like how is it like you can say the Eagles pass rush sucks. We have 2 weeks on that. This is a new group. You can tell that they're not as good as we thought they were going to be. I don't know what went wrong with San Francisco, but they had an off day. And San Francisco is going to be playing in December and January and probably February, and we're not going to remember this whole week 2 thing. So kind of the definitive statement making is pretty crazy. Like the NFL is silly. It's going to always be silly. And sorry that you lost money this week. It was a tough week for everybody.
The book's cleaned up, man. First 2 weeks they have eaten, and that's for sure. And I completely agree with that sentiment, right? Like, oh, the Niners are horrible now. Oh, and then what the Chiefs almost lost, probably should have lost. And everybody would like imagine all those teams losing. What are we saying here? But now today, you listen sports talk radio, you listen to television, whatever the case. Oh, John Harbaugh can't coach. Lamar Jackson sucks. Joe Burrow is done. Zach Taylor's terrible. The Eagles are horrible. Jalen Hurts is an awful QB. Nick Sirianni fired. And we'll get into some of this stuff in Armchair Quarterback. But I agree with you, man. It's week 2. We're recording on September 17th. Are we going to be talking about this? I mean, forget Thanksgiving, Halloween. Absolutely not. We're all going to forget this. So, all right, let's get into Armchair Quarterback. And we got to start off with the Eagles because, that's been really dominating sports talk radio again and television today, which is the decision to throw the football on 3rd down to Saquon Barkley, who was wide open, dropped the pass, should have caught it, and ultimately the defense gets shredded up because the Eagles kick a field goal. They're up 6. The Falcons go down and score to go up and take a 1-point lead. Jalen Hurts can't lead the Eagles down to the field goal range, throws an interception. Game's over. Philadelphia is shocked on a game they shouldn't have lost on a night they honored Nick Foles when Jason Kelce's back in the building, and it was a really bad loss. Like, you can't lose that. So let's talk about a couple different angles here. I'll just throw it over to you, and we'll kind of unpack this and give our 2 cents.
Well, first, does it feel like, Jason Kelce's got an expiration date, or the whole Kelce family, like they're shoving him down our throats so much, and we're Kelce guys, but it is going to reach a point where people are going to be like, dude, I can't anymore with this guy. Like, this is enough. I felt like it was quite a bit last night. But on the actual football side of things, look, the play call to Saquon Barkley is drawing a lot of attention. Saquon catches the pass. It's not a story. The Eagles win the football game. Nobody's concerned. Nobody's angry. Saquon didn't drop the pass. Saquon leads all running backs in drop passes since like 2018 or whatever it is. I said to you pre-show, I don't have any problem with the play call. He was wide open. I just would have ran the ball on 3rd down and then ran that play on 4th. And that's essentially kind of what it boils down to me. Like, there's a lot of, like, you play to win the game and you go for it on 4th down. Handing the football to Saquon Barkley is playing to win the game. Like, I think that is what that is. I mean, he was absolutely shredding last night and then goes 2 possessions without getting the football, and kind of just overall stagnation by the Eagles offense quite a bit. You can point at that decision. You can point at them going for it on 4th and 4 instead of kicking a field goal early in the game, and then we might not be having this conversation. You can point to the defense, allowing Kirk Cousins to dog walk them down the field to score a touchdown. Drake London's open by 5 yards in the corner of the end zone. Or you can look at it and go, we need 15 yards and we have 1 timeout. Why is this a 25-yard shot play to Devontae Smith into double coverage? All of those things are valid concerns. I think the reason that this feels bigger is because of the way the Eagles ended last season. And the way that, the narrative around Nick Sirianni is like he has 2 jobs essentially, and that's to make good decisions as far as down and distance and kind of managing the game, and then keeping the locker room afloat. And until I see evidence that this year the locker room's exploded or splintered, then I'll kind of back off a little bit. But I thought that he, again, didn't rise to the occasion necessarily, but it's hard. It's 6-1 because if Saquon catches that ball, we're not having this conversation.
Yeah, I think the discourse surrounding it is super interesting to me because you got all the people, just a clear play is to run the ball. Okay, well, if that's what you think, right? If you feel that way, then you can never, ever, ever applaud when Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes do the same thing on a play action that works and you throw a little screen pass. You can't be like, just a great play call. Or when you do a little jet out, right? Like you said with Brady to Edelman or Brady to Welker, it's like, oh, man, just what a smart play call. You can't ever say that. Like, you lose your right to say that, in my opinion. Like, I think you're being disingenuous. Like, you can't look at this and say, oh, if it would have worked, whoa, and when it doesn't work, bad. Because then you're just not being fair to any situation. You're a results-based guy instead of being someone who's pragmatic or somebody who's looking ahead and saying, okay, how do we attack this? I think you and I both, with our I guess, football DNA or how we approach the game, the process, we run the football there. I just, when I was sitting there, I'm like, you run the ball, and you probably get the first down with the way Barkley has run it.
Quarterback sneak, 4th and 1.
2 times, whatever the case may be. But both you and I probably would have run the football. So then they decide not to, right? Like, Kellen Moore calls to play. I think it is also very telling that people are sitting here and blaming Nick Sirianni for that when Nick Sirianni has turned the play calling over to Kellen Moore. Now, maybe us as Eagles fans, we're the only ones who know that because we actually care about who's calling plays and who doesn't. But sure, Nick Sirianni can veto and say, no, we're running the football, right? Like, that's what the head coach does. But I do think it's funny that he's the only one. It's like, oh, Sirianni's an idiot. Well, I'm like, he's not the one signaling in the play calls here. Let's be a little bit fair and accurate when it comes to that point. But at the end of the day, Tyson, this is why football is such a team game. Because one, Saquon Barkley catches the ball, the game's over. The defense does anything right coming down the stretch. That was a joke, the way they just let Kirk Cousins go down the field. If they do anything, one stop, one tackle, one sack, you probably win the game. Coming back, if Jalen Hurts makes good decisions, you got plenty of time left, buddy. You got one timeout. You don't need to take the shot play right now. Then the Eagles have to give themselves a chance to win the football game. But it all crescendoed, and I think that's why, to your point, we're looking at this like, oh my God, what's going on with the Eagles here? Is it going to happen again? And so it's some early adversity. It'll be telling to see if they can overcome it.
And I haven't heard anybody else do it, so goddamn it, we'll do it. Shout out to Kirk Cousins. Shout out to Falcons. I know you see the flag behind Brad and the jersey behind me. We didn't enjoy seeing that, but he got to exercise some demons yesterday, and this Falcons team, was able to show like, hey, we can win a game against a team that at least people think are going to be good, right? I mean, this was after the way the Saints had looked the first 2 weeks. It felt much more important for Atlanta to come out and get a win. I think Raheem Morris kind of relayed that urgency, especially in the second half, and then they were able to get things rolling. It's going to be hard to tell if what the Falcons did well in this game, because the Eagles' defensive line was so bad that the running lanes were huge, and Bijan's so good that sometimes he is making things happen when they're not there. But it was they executed their game plan better than the Eagles executed theirs, and that at the end of the day is how you win football games. And everything else is kind of secondary. It's harder to have 24-hour around-the-clock discourse on X's and O's stuff, and it's easier to go, Nick Sirianni sucks. And he wasn't great, and he hasn't built up as much kind of cachet as a CEO head coach like Dan Campbell. Even though he's won more than Dan Campbell has more goodwill. So when Ben Johnson makes a bad call, everyone knows it was Ben Johnson, or everyone knows it was Aaron Glenn on the defensive side of the ball, where Sirianni doesn't necessarily have that right now.
All right, there's some national show. Tyson and I could talk about the Eagles all day, but let's focus on the Chiefs Bengals. Because another just an epic game between Burrow and Mahomes, man. These teams just play thrillers, play classics, and I don't think it was controversy, but it just feels like the Chiefs just get every close call. Whenever it's a bang play, it goes the Chiefs' way, right? Like, that's a pass interference at the end of the game on 4th down. Everybody sees that. He's there early. That's a flag. You have to throw it. But God, it just feels like every single time it's the Chiefs who get the benefit of a questionable and close call. But what did you think of this game? Patrick Mahomes, 2 interceptions, held under 200 yards, the second fewest he's ever had in a game in the NFL. I'm seeing online the average depth of target has completely shrunk. I don't know if it's the Tyreek Hill thing. I don't know if it's Travis Kelce. He caught 1 football for 5 yards in this one. He had that one that got called back. That would have been a big play. But, Rashee Rice, he's a specialist at running slants. There's not a lot of deep post action there. He just runs across the middle of the field. So the average depth of target is going to be lower. But I want to get your takeaway on this game, because I think there's a bunch of different ways we can go.
Well, to address your first point, it does feel like the Chiefs get, all these calls at the end of games. It also feels like teams commit a lot of penalties on the Chiefs at the end of games. And so it's kind of reaching the point where it's like, well, that was pass interference there. It was pass interference here. Like you can go to the Jets game a year ago. It's like the last time that I can really remember them getting bailed. But, maybe just stop committing penalties when you have them on the ropes and you can beat these guys. And then kind of to your next point, Brad, I am sitting on the deck. I'm overlooking the 18th green, and I got my feet up, and I got my dinner and all that stuff. And I'm just watching Travis Kelce putt in on 18 and come join me in the clubhouse. That's the way this feels. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to reverse jinx him a little bit. I can't tell, if King Kelsey's or, King Swifty, if he's washed or what is going on, but he doesn't look good. The offense looks completely different as far as the way that they're trying to utilize him. Are they going to figure it out until I'm proven otherwise with Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes, and Travis Kelce? Then I'm going to say yes. We probably should have read a little bit more into this Noah Gray extension that happened a couple of weeks ago. It was 3 years, like $36 million, something crazy that everyone was kind of like, what the heck? And not that he's been a world beater to come out here, but NFL teams will tell you silently kind of, hey, this guy is getting closer to the back nine, or he doesn't maybe look the way that we want him to in camp. I think Kelce will probably figure it out. That's more concerning to me than anything else that happened in this game, and Mahomes' average depth of target, all that stuff. I don't care about any of those things because at the end of the day, they just find a way to win football games. And Spags is the man. Is this more demoralizing for Cincinnati, losing like this, than if they were to lose by 20?
No, I don't think so, because they didn't have T. Higgins. So they can point to that and say, hey, we didn't have one of our guys. We made a couple mistakes here. They still think they have the secret to slowing down Mahomes. And I don't think they coming out of this game, it's like, man, we held them to that and 2 turnovers. And the only reason why we didn't put up more points is some self-inflicted wounds. I think they're coming out of this confident. I think they're fired up. Tyson, I'll tell you, the Travis Kelce thing, they're going to try to do what they did last year where they hardly use him in the regular season. Like the days of going over and trying to break
22 miles an hour in the Super Bowl and everyone's like, how the hell?
Exactly. Like he's on his D Wade thing with the Heat. Like remember when 2 years later when Dwayne Wade could barely dunk and he's in the finals doing windmills. It's like, or I'm sorry, but the back end of the Heat thing. I'm like, what's going on here? So I think that's what they're going to do with Travis Kelce. Now, the concerning thing I have for the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco's out 6 to 8 weeks. Carson Steele, we like him. We watched him a lot at Ball State. Then he went to UCLA. He's a rookie. And there's a reason he went undrafted. Let's just put it that way. We think he's good. 𝐿𝐿dwards-Helaire is not available. Some, mental health thing. I'm not quite sure the whole details on it. They didn't provide a whole lot. But, if you're going to have to play defense first and you got these average depth of target concerns, and Travis Kelce's not the same guy he was, and it's only Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown's out for the year, basically. I'm not saying it's over. I'm not saying they're in trouble because it's Mahomes and Reed, but it makes it a whole lot harder to win football games. And this will be a very interesting stretch. I'll just put it that way.
And everyone's excited that they went out and got Kareem Hunt again today. They brought him back. And folks, he was available when they got Samaje Perine a month ago. They could have signed him then. They didn't want to. I'm not super optimistic. I want to watch Steele play ball, but he's got, 1 fumble on 4 career carries. It's going to be tough.
Saints Cowboys, shocking game, Tyson. I mean, holy smokes! We're ready
to say we're wrong on the Saints.
I think through 2 games we have to. Now we'll see if this is sustainable. It's Derek Carr and Dennis
in
Allen,
2 weeks,
dude.
And I thought they were going to score all year.
It's been very good, man. I mean, you got to point to it. I don't know if it's because Pete Carmichael's no longer there and they got a new OC. I mean, this offense looks ridiculous. Rashid Shaheed, shout out. He's been insane. Alvin Kamara, I mean, we talked about, is he on the back 9? It looks like he's turned the clock. 4 touchdowns, 20 rush yards, 115 yards against this Dallas defense. Are you more surprised by New Orleans or more impressed by New Orleans, or what just happened to Dallas?
I think more surprised and impressed with New Orleans. Dallas got bombed on, and that's crazy. But the Saints bombed on, the Panthers start the year, and it was kind of like, well, who cares? You beat those guys. It doesn't matter. To do it to a team that we thought it was going to be good is, certainly a solid thing. But at least we weren't sitting here saying the Cowboys defense is elite. This is crazy. And so, yeah, sometimes when you're missing a guy like Deron Bland and you have some media darlings on the defense that maybe aren't as good of players as their PFF grade would indicate. This happens, and it'll continue to happen if people don't respect. Dude, 𝐸𝐸zed 𝐸𝐸d, if you just took like the name and the draft capital away and you compared him to a lot of these people's favorite wide receivers, we have a clear winner. And there's a point where it's like, look, and I'm not saying he's better than Chris Olave. I'm not saying he's better than Drake London or whoever else you have in your head right now, but you're thinking. And that's really the main takeaway here. It's like, oh, it's a 75-yard shot play. 𝐸𝐸d's down there. Like, and this is the dude kind of taking over the role. The Alvin Kamara thing doesn't make any sense to me. This is like he's now surpassing kind of the LaShawn McCoy guy from the 2010s, if you want to say, like the guy that was the most dominant for the longest period in that decade. Alvin is now doing that for one more year than LaShawn McCoy did. I mean, you got to go back to like LaDainian Tomlinson and guys like that in the early 2000s to find kind of this elongated period of success. And they're doing it like without there's not a lot of name cachet, I don't think, on the New Orleans Saints right now. And I think that's the hardest part to grapple with. It's like, well, it's still Derek Carr. He did this on like 11 completions. It doesn't make any sense. It's still Taysom Hill and Jawan Johnson. And like, we're waiting for the ghost of Michael Thomas. Like, that dude's not even on a team. Like, what is going on? And they're just scoring 40. And sometimes, everybody misses on these guys in the draft. And then we just are so slow to say, you know what? 𝐸𝐸zed 𝐸𝐸d's a good player. And he's elevating this offense. And that's what's going on.
He's got to get a new number. Can somebody get him out of 22? No,
so we
terrible.
skipped it with the Eagles thing. What's worse, 22 with 𝐸𝐸d or 34 for 𝐸𝐸rMcLeod?
Oh, 34 was awful for
horrible, right?
I mean, like borderline unacceptable.
Okay.
Like that shouldn't be happening.
The
NFL likes to put clamps. Oh, dude, I couldn't believe. I mean, for a running back, sure, but he's never played running back. And 𝐸𝐸d, I'm like, come on, man. This guy, I understand it when he was undrafted and he brought him in 22, throw him a number, but this guy's unbelievable so far. 7 catches, 162, and 2 tuds. Get this guy a real number. But I was more shocked, me personally, with Dallas. I mean, this is one of my picks. I kind of, poo-pooed Dennis Allen. I got to say, so far, been super impressed by the way he's conducted this team or had him ready to play. So, Dennis Allen, until I'm proven otherwise, I got to say good things about him. But Dallas looked horrible, man. Dak Prescott, after signing the deal, second week in a row, it's just, it was good in week 1 and week 2. Yeah, it looks great. 27-39. It always looks good for Dak, right? Like, you look at the paper and you look at the box score and it's always looking nice, right? But it's 27-39, 293. 2 interceptions, Tyson. They're just largely out of it. It's empty stats. And just the way the defense was completely shredded apart. It was horrible. So I was shocked by Dallas. I don't know if this means that I should elevate the Saints in the proverbial power rankings, if I should demote Dallas. Like you said, we don't want to overreact. This is only week 2. But, man, this was something that caught my eye. That's for sure.
I think the Saints might be the barometer this year. If you can beat them, you might be able to win a Super Bowl.
All right, let's close out with this Bucs-Lions before we get into marquee matchups for week 3. What is happening with the Lions offense? 6 points in the first quarter. They're in the red zone freaking every time. Or first half, I'm sorry. 6 points in the first half. Do you put that on Bowles? This offense, this is 2 weeks in a row they haven't been operating at a high level. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
No, I want to give love to Todd Bowles because we think he's pretty good over here.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't feel like he gets a lot of love. I don't know. I have no clue what is going on with this Lions offense. It was week 1, and it was like, well, they didn't actually really try to force the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta, and this offense will probably look better once they do that. And then Amon-Ra gets force-fed till he throws up, and Jameson Williams still has a good game, and the running backs are getting tons of usage as normal. Didn't get Laporta involved, but they still didn't score points. And we were sitting here going, man, Jared Goff is playing 14 to 17 games this year indoors. Like, is this a sneaky MVP candidate? They're going to win a ton of games. They're going to score 1 billion points. Ben Johnson is a genius. And it's only been 2 weeks. But this is the same group of guys they had a year ago, essentially. It's the same group of guys they've had for a couple of years. And there is something to be said for continuity in the NFL. It seems like the teams that can kind of keep their core together as they age, the start of the season is really hot. And it's hard to, like, how many years did we spend trying to even figure out who was good in the NFC East? Because it was the same core teams, and they were beating non-divisional opponents who were trying to figure it out. for the first 4 or 5 weeks. With this Lions team, dude, I don't know. Like, they're explosive, and they're still getting explosives, not quite as many as in years past, but they are struggling as soon as they get into that red area, man. I mean, they're fine, in the green zone and doing Lion stuff, but we love Jahmyr Gibbs. I got to see more. Like, it was an awesome way to end the season a year ago, but I can't tell if this is like, hey, look, Devon Achane's a great player. Devon Achane's not boosting you up to that next level, I don't think, as far as like we can put the game on this guy and win an NFC championship game. We thought Gibbs could be that guy. I don't know.
Hey, well, I'm wondering if it's usage, right? Because 13 carries for 84 yards.
He looks great.
It looks great. So, like, why aren't they getting in the end zone? I mean, David Montgomery, 11 for 35, 1 touchdown. Like, that was shocking to me when I was watching this. I'm like, no burst, no separation. But Tyson, 7 catches for 22 yards for Gibbs. Like, that's not acceptable. What, like, are they just throwing pop passes? Can you get him in space? Can you do it in a way where you have a clear matchup? Like, are teams, and Todd Bowles is a really good defensive coordinator, but are teams now figuring out what Ben Johnson's doing? That's my concern about the Lions, because this whole offense, right, this entire thing is predicated on Ben Johnson's a genius. Oh my God, if the Lions lose Ben Johnson, how are they ever going to recover? Well, are we seeing just kind of like we saw with Mike McDaniel, I think is a big thing going on down there in South Beach, or people just starting to catch up to this thing? That was a conversation we had. And I don't necessarily want to say they're dead. I don't want to say that, this offense isn't going to be as good or they're going to underperform, but it's shocking. Sam Laporta, 2 catches for 13 yards. If that just can't happen, especially with the way tight ends are used in the league today. 19 targets for St. Brown, 11 catches. 11 targets for Jameson Williams, 5 catches. Jared Goff goes 34-55, 307, two interceptions. I mean, what are we doing here? Detroit has an offensive line that can maul. Why are you not giving Jahmyr Gibbs 20 carries? Why are you not giving David Montgomery? And I understand the per carry average wasn't great at 3.2, but we saw what happened when they stuck with it against the Rams, eventually busted it, and the overtime was a joke. But Tyson, to lose this game 20-16, let me read this out for you. Baker Mayfield, 12 of 19 for 185, crazy. A touchdown, an interception, was sacked 5 times. Freaking 4 of those came in the first quarter by Hutchinson. You look at the running game here, 23 carries, 70 yards, 3.0 yards a carry, only 1 touchdown. How did they lose this game? It's crazy. So there needs to be like real conversations are going on in Detroit. I'm alarmed. I'll put it this way. Again, I don't want to overreact, but I'm alarmed that this offense has looked this way the first 2 weeks.
Maybe they need a pep talk from Marcus Freeman.
Maybe they need to go on the road, dude. Maybe they got to get out of that dome. Maybe it's Jared Goff out of dome season. All right, let's turn our attention to week 3, marquee matchups. There should be some good ones. It's too early to be like, oh, these are the best teams in the league. This is what we got to pay attention to. But we've highlighted 4 that we want to bring to you and give our thoughts on. I think maybe the biggest game of the weekend, just from I got to see something here, Tyson, is Ravens-Cowboys. Ravens are 0-2, just a horrendous loss against the Raiders, one that you just cannot lose that game when you're at home against the Raiders team. And Dallas, they're home again. We saw them be so good at home last year. They get embarrassed on their home turf. I mean, Ravens, they could go to 0-3. Holy smokes. What do you think about this one?
0-3 sinks the ship. I mean, we have enough data to know that, like, in the history of the NFL, a team losing their first 3 games, like, it's nearly impossible to bounce back from. I think this is one that the Ravens have to have. Dude, how many times are we going to sit here and go, man, I don't know if Monken's cut out for this whole NFL business, because it's been 18, 19, 20, 21 times, I think, since he's joined the Ravens. Every week we're sitting here going, this dude has, like, no clue, like, who his best players are, what's going on. Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey, those guys aren't around to bail him out. I don't quite understand the Ravens voodoo, because it just seems like this is the games and the seasons that they continually find themselves in. And I've seen them pull themselves out of situations like this a million times. So I think Harbaugh will have those guys right. On the flip side with Dallas, it feels like they don't have to win the game, but it would be like season making if they can go 2-1 here with, we see Washington's defense still looks like trash. The Giants are the Giants, so they suck. And then Philadelphia losing the way they did. Going 2-1 makes you feel good about where you're at through 3 weeks. Going 1-2 and probably looking up at somebody else in the division here is really scary.
I expect a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. I think they're going to lean into that ideology. I mean, 18 carries, 84 yards. He had one big run. It looked like that thing was going to get ugly for a little bit, but Monken wants to go away from that. You're right. Like that's why they brought him in. Be a little bit more pass happy. Tyson, these weapons aren't good enough for that. Be smash mouth. You're the Baltimore freaking Ravens. Run the ball down the throat. Lamar Jackson got leaner to do that. Listen, I love Zay Flowers. I think he's an absolute star. Would love him on the Eagles. Love him on my team. He's the only guy that's good on this offense. I mean, your boy, that's used. I mean, we know what 𝐤𝐨𝐫𝐞 can do. We saw it against the Chiefs. How do you go from that to 3 targets the next week?
Don't even throw him the ball.
That's another Monken thing here. But, 27 carries, 151 on the ground against the Raiders. Lean into that. That's my thing. I think they're going to do it. And for the Cowboys, you got a blueprint. I think you can attack this team through the air, man. Minshew, 30 for 38 for 276. Devontae Adams, 9 catches, 110 yards. Bowers, 9 catches, 98. I mean, that screams CD and Ferguson or the backup Schoonmaker because Ferguson's hurt all day to me. Let's get to Bears-Colts, Titans. Bears-Colts, Tyson.
I lost you for a second there. Sorry for the dead air, people.
No, you're good. Bears-Colts. What do you think about this one? This one that you wanted to highlight. What are you thinking here?
Well, I just want to see, let's let the kids play each other. And that to me is kind of the biggest story here. We're still, we're a week removed now from Anthony Richardson dropping everybody's jaw with a 65 yards in the air, perfect strike to Alec Pierce. And then he looked like Anthony Richardson again the rest of that game. He looked like Anthony Richardson on Sunday. It was atrocious. And we were pounding the table. Jeff Hafley might be the hire of the summer. This dude's awesome at Boston College. His defenses in the NFL are going to be sweet. It shouldn't have looked like that, especially not second week. I think 𝐸 and 𝐿 and those guys have a lot to prove against the Bears defense. It has looked pretty good. Kept them, won them the game week 1 against the Titans, and then kept them in the game for entirely too long on Sunday night against the Texans. And then for Chicago, can we have a week of practice dedicated to protecting our investment, to making sure that this kid can stay upright? Look, we're not saying, Caleb Williams is a bust or anything like that, but organizations can ruin players. And just based off of a 2-week little tiny sample, it looks like they might get this kid killed, man.
Dude, the offensive line is horrendous. I was looking at some advanced things for 2 weeks, and people are diving into this thing, pressure rate versus time to throw and pressure rate versus pass rush success. Quite literally, there is no comparison how bad the Bears offensive line is. You watched all 22 that I've been seeing floating around, the right guard and the right tackle.
They're blocking each other. You never know what's going on. And then to compound those issues, right, let's run tunnel screens and stuff to some of our guys outside. But then we're not going to have the offensive lineman actually get out to the edges and block. It's just, hey, DJ, see if you can break 4 tackles here for 6 yards. This offense is disgusting.
Yeah, and Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Seahawks star, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, who's now with the Bears. I'm forgetting his name right now, but they asked him about, what do you think of this? And he's like, oh, good luck, like the Chicago. And I was like, not necessarily a glowing review here. So we'll see what happens, Tyson. I'll say this. I think Caleb Williams is going to be really good. I don't think I'm going out on a limb there. I know a lot of people are dancing on his grave right now because that's what losers do nowadays. It's 2 games in the guy's career. Oh, I painted his nails. He sucks. I told you. Can we just relax a little bit?
He was ripping that thing when he was allowed to rip that thing.
Oh, my God. It looked really good. And there's growing pains, and we were texting back and forth, need some pocket awareness, need some time to – read some defenses and things like that. But I think it looks good. And on the flip side with the Colts, man, what's Jonathan Taylor? You on a milk carton? 28 carries, 151, a touchdown through the season.
Milk carton's missing too.
Holy smoke. So this should be an interesting one. I'm curious to know. I mean, is this one where Caleb Williams can actually look good against a Gus Bradley defense? So, I got to get my shot in.
You had to. You had to do it. Look, Gus Bradley's pretty good when he's got corners. They don't have corners.
Lions-Cardinals, another one that we want to highlight, and I think mainly for me, oh boy, Marvin Harrison Jr., even funnier, one game, guys are calling him a bust. What are we talking about here? Guy that in 1 quarter does something his dad only did one time in his career. It's unbelievable. So offense looks good. Kyler Murray, if the guy can just keep his head out of his ass and be a good leader, oh man, you throw on the tape, you're like, dude, not many people can do what he can do. And then can the Lions score points against this defense? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm saying it till 2028. Kyler Williams should be your flag football quarterback. I don't understand how he can like move around the way that he does, and it looks like his feet aren't really under him, and he's bow-legged. Like he's throwing. It just looks, every rodeo I've ever been at, I've had 7 Kyler Murrays wandering around. Is the way that it feels. And then just to like play the way he does. How many incompletions did he have? 3, 4?
Oh, let me find that for you here. I just had it pulled up. Now that you mention it,
3 or 4 incompletions. We know Marv had the excellent first quarter, and then you're allowed to go ghost a little bit. I know that we would have liked to see more from that first quarter, but that's 3 weeks worth of stat lines for every New York Giant not named Malik Neighbors. So that was a pretty good intro to the NFL there for Marv, especially after a week where everyone said he was slow because he only ran 16 miles an hour when he was doing wind sprints and not getting the football. Weird how this generational talent looks like a generational talent when you put the ball in his fucking hands, Jonathan Gannon. Elijah Higgins looked really good. That was a takeaway for me. Backup tight end. Trey McBride is Trey McBride, so he's not going to get on the field a ton, but it's just one more weapon for them to have. Dude, is James Conner ever going to like age out of the NFL? Like
no.
He's the
he
most
runs too hard,
runner.
man.
It's crazy. It doesn't make – he makes Josh Jacobs look like he runs like Aaron Jones.
He makes 𝐬𝐨𝐫𝐞𝐿 look like he runs like Josh Jacobs.
It's crazy, man. I mean, so for that part of it, I think we're really excited with the Cardinals. And then on the flip side, we just got to see. We just got to see. Is this a trend now after 3 weeks, or was it just knocking some rust off?
Yeah. Kyler Murray, 4 incompletions, 158.3 passer rating.
Which is perfect.
98.3 QBR. He was really good. Just 12.7 yards per completion. Ooh-wee. Marvin Harrison, how about this? 4 catches, 130, 32.5 average, and 2 touchdowns. 8 targets. So we'll clean that up a little bit. But man, oh man, that was a performance. That's for sure.
All 4 incompletions were at Marv. That's what we want to see. Watching the Cardinals, like just hit the ball his direction, and then you're going to get quarters like this.
All right, let's close out with Chiefs Falcons. Now, this one is on Sunday Night Football, so Kirk Cousins back in prime time again. Now, I have a different thought about the Falcons than I did in week 1. I thought Kirk Cousins loosened up a little bit with his mobility, at least when he wasn't rushed, and the Eagles couldn't get after him. But where are you at with the Chiefs? Where are you at with the Falcons? I'm curious.
I don't know if Kirk Cousins loosened up or if he just was able to sit in the pocket and not have to show that he's not loose. And I think the Chiefs will find that out awful quick. For as much love as Jalen Carter gets, he's not Chris Jones. He's just not, and this guy's going to live in your lap. This defense is really good, and they're going to scheme some things up. We saw essentially like last night when the Eagles were able to take away Bijan Robinson, and not let the Falcons have 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 3 and get into positive, situations with the football. The whole thing comes to a grinding halt. Kyle Pitts is not the guy I thought he was. He's just not. I think Drake London looked fine. He's still soft to me, and I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are one team that'll find that out for you pretty quick. I am excited to see if Atlanta can build on some of this momentum because at the end of the day, that's what the NFL is. Like whoever can stack the most of these things up and keep the train rolling. Nobody's better at that than Kansas City. It's really hard because the Chiefs' run defense has looked good. I can't tell if it was just a negative game script for Cincinnati based on the way that they wanted to like handle running the football, or if Zach Moss just isn't that good and it's going to be the Chase Brown show and they're still giving the ball to Zach Moss. So we'll find that out with the Falcons. That's one thing that I'm curious to see because I think if the Chiefs want to, go back to back to back, you got a lot of teams in the AFC that like to run the football and are really good at it. The Falcons are a great test.
Matthew Judon's got to eat in this one. You got to show why that they went and traded for you and then gave you some money. Trey Hendrickson was in the backfield on Mahomes. They were getting after him a little bit. This is the time you heat up Mahomes. I think the secondary played actually really well for the Falcons too. AJ Terrell got a bag. People are like, not sure about that one. If this back end, Jesse Bates is a stud, man. We know that. Like if this secondary can hold up, this is going to be close, man. The Falcons can. They're getting 3.5 right now at home on prime time. I don't know. It's hard for me to think that they can move the football on the Chiefs just the way that if they can get after Kirk Cousins, it may be a little bit similar to the Steelers game that we saw, but coming back home, we'll see what happens. That's for sure.
I mean, recent samples are showing that Kirk Cousins cannot lose primetime football games.
All right, let's get out of here, Tyson. Like, subscribe, and share the show. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button on the way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. We got a bunch of content coming out for you. You guys know the drill by now. We got our college football reaction. I'm gonna be losing my mind. So I was nice on the NFL show. College, I'm tweaking. Tyson knows it. Oh, we're getting cooked. So we'll have some reactions then. Stay tuned till I guess tomorrow on Wednesday. Talk to you guys then. Peace.